Alrighty, well, we are on. Okay, so let me get the lights on. Ooh. Okay, so what are we doing? Well, we're making a recording. This is going to be a VOD review for our good friend Jay here, who is gonna be wearing the blue trunks, lower left, in the using the protoss pieces, as we say. So, I will note, before I go on with this review of this game, I have not watched this yet. This is going to be my first pass through. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully I can make sense of it, give some pointers to our friend here. Also, I have not played a game of 1v1 StarCraft 2 since Heroes? No, since Heart of the Swarm. So I have not played Legacy of the Void. Starting with 12 workers was a bit much for me. And that was right around the time I was losing my eyesight anyway, so we didn't do that. So every time. Come here. Oh, okay, so now that we have the cat, we're gonna play through this using Jay's perspective for the most part. I wanna see a lot of how he uses his camera. I want to see a lot of other things as well. So, one thing to kind of note before we kind of get into it, and I apologize for the zooms, but they're gonna happen. So, one thing that we need to really be cognizant of is our use of the minimap. Minimap is the most important feature of the game. Like literally, this is where like all of your information is coming from. So your eyes need to basically be like going between like here down to here, and then from there you also need to go back up to here. Now, what have I just described? I've described the most obnoxious UI design ever. This is intentional. This is something that we're gonna get into with a lot of our like mechanical talk, but basically, StarCraft was designed from the ground up to be ridiculously hard. With StarCraft 2, they tried to make things a little bit easier, but there are some subtle things like the mini-map placement and the resource placement that are holdovers to make sure that this game is as hard as possible. So, now, as far as like where we want to be controlling on this map, I would say that I need to swap back to the cursor mode. There we go. So one thing that no longer exists are the Xel'Naga watchtowers. So like those sorts of places to hold are not so much. I see there's actually no gold bases on this map as well. So as far as like how we're going to be expanding, I would assume that we would take the natural first. That's why we call it the natural. And then this is like an obvious third base. This is an obvious third base. Like we can expand pretty much wherever. How we choose to expand is going to be largely dependent on how we want to play the map. Are we playing a more mobile strategy? Are we playing a less mobile strategy? We'll see. Now, our Terran opponent is going to be up in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like this is a 4-player map, so they really could have spawned anywhere, I believe. So we'll see how this kind of plays out. Now this is, like I said, a PvT rather. I'm not going to be worried about the actual matchup. I want to see how Jay is playing and see if we can't help out a little bit. All right. So already from the camera movement, I think, now again, this could be a number of things, but all right, yeah. So we have a lot of little motions with our camera that don't seem entirely necessary. So what that feels like to me is what we're ending up doing, right, is we're adding extra mouse movement to like move the camera around. I like how static we are right now, actually, because we can see everything we need to, right? This is fine. Like this build order is perfectly fine. Whenever we're executing a build order, our probes look like they are being built pretty regularly, which is good. We want to make sure we're on top of that. I believe the chrono boost is autocast now, or is there no chrono boost? Chrono boost does still exist. So Unless the build order calls for this chrono boost to be saved, I would just be chrono boosting our probes right now. Other than that, again, I'm liking kind of how we're playing at the moment. Denying that scout is also pretty decent. It wasn't really a threat to us, so ignoring it was fine. But then, yeah, eventually you want to be chasing it out before, because your gas timing is going to be a big tell to your opponents. So like currently you're going like gas before expand, right? So what that could tell your opponent is that you are looking to one base tech up, or at least get some tech as you're taking your first expansion. So if they got to see the assimilator timing, which you might actually want to make sure that you do this assimilator first rather than this one, just because it's easier to scout this assimilator. This is like some really, really, really micro plays that like probably won't matter, and especially won't matter kind of like where you're at, because like this assumes that your opponent is like looking for things like gas timings, right? But yeah, so this is something that we want to try behind. So again, the denying this guy was great because we got the get it denied to then go make the assimilator. We're just getting a cybernetic score. That's fine. A little bit of motion down there, just play on Plylon. That's also fine. And then ready to go into the assimilator. Good. So already, like we're looking pretty decent. Again, I'm seeing we have pretty much good probe production. What is the key for? Is it just the unit tab? Okay. So we're a little bit behind our Terran buddy here on workers, but that's fine. That might actually be pretty normal. I'm not sure about the total worker timing. What we do need to be worried about, looks like they do have a barracks online, but we have our gateways up. So let's, whoop. I'm hitting space because for some reason I think that pauses the map. So we take a look at our resources here, and we see that we're currently floating like 400 minerals, right? So yeah, so one of the key principles, right, is to keep our money super low. Floating 400 this early in the floating 400 is like generally pretty good. Floating 400 this early in the game, generally bad. We want to be trying to spend this money, and we have gateways available that we could be building zealots. Something interesting that you'll note is that as you start playing and you start getting better at the game, you will be able to support less production facilities on the income that you have, because your macro is just better. You're spending your money better. When I first started playing, I was playing Terran, and I would do these things where I would do a three barracks before expand. I would build 3 barracks, building Marines out of all of them, maybe a couple of Marauders, and then I had like, you know, reactors and like tech labs on them and stuff, and I was able to like research stim and do this like timing attack where I would like go in with my Marines and Marauders right as stim would finish. I could go in, stim, do my things, and then behind that I'd build an expansion. As I got better at my macro, I realized I didn't have the money. I was building a bigger army, but I didn't have the money to make the expansion anymore because I was so good at producing my SCVs and my Marines and Marauders. And then I got to the point where I realized 3 barracks is way too much. I had to actually go back down to 2. Now you're executing a build order, you're working off of what other people are telling you to do. That's great. That means you should be able to kind of once you kind of like figure this out and kind of get it refined in your head, it'll be nice and crisp. But we really want to make sure, principle 1, spend our money. So if we have these production facilities available, we want to spend them on zealots. Unless we're like expand. If we're expanding, we're saving for a nexus. That's also fine. But I don't think we are. We are on your camera, right? Oh, now we're on your camera. Okay. I had gotten off your camera for a brief period of time. I'm looking down the mini map. I'm not seeing expansion coming down. So, yeah, we should have been just producing zealots earlier. We're just starting to build a zealot now. As we look over and oh no, stalker. We're getting a stalker. Okay. Okay, so it looks like we're doing some one base stalker action. Now, I want to talk to you about your hotkey usage. So right away, I'm seeing that you do have, you've got your Nexus on 1 and you got your gateways on 2. That's great. That's actually fantastic. So, I think a lot of times people, especially when they're newer at the game, they don't realize that they should be hotkeying their buildings, right? So what this is going to let you do is this is going to let you like really make sure that you can macro from across the map. Now, this placement is like fine, right? You just build them because you can build them, right? But I always feel that if you build your production facilities kind of close together, it makes it easier for you to kind of keep track of like what they're doing. Because like this as well, like if you have your 2 gateways up here and 2 gateways down here, now you have to hang on, let me alt tab and I'll tab back in. There we go. Okay, now we're confined. So if we have these 2 gateways here and these 2 gateways here, what we're gonna end up doing is we're gonna have to hotkey them together. But it could happen that what ends up going on is you end up doing your thing, you plop these 2 down, you forget about them, and now you're dealing with this area up here, and you're constantly looking back at your base at this area and then looking around the map and then coming back down to this area, and not seeing these gateways, and you might not even realize that they're not in your hotkey grouping. So I would plant these closer. And I realize here you probably just looked and said, oh, this is where I have a pylon. And this is a common place to put pylons for, like, you know, just for supply, which is fine. And if that was the case of like I needed to plant some gateways, fine, great. But I'm just saying, like, what we could probably do. Oh, I can't actually see the aura. What I would probably do is I would probably want to make sure, because I'm thinking about what's coming next, is I plant this pylon up in this area where this probe is currently headed. So that's what I would personally do. Let's see what you're looking at. You're just checking around the map. Now, obviously, we can't see. We're just getting our lay of the land, which is totally fine. Oh, okay. Ooh, okay. Some cross-map shenanigans. So I assume what we're doing now is we are getting ready for some 4-gate warp-ins cross-map. So pylon going across the map so that we can transform into warp gates and then just spawn stalkers in across the map. We realize that we have a Reaper going on, which is fine. Like, we're responding appropriately. So like something you could do again, like in the micro, right? Once you kind of get this stalker, which this stalker also should already have a hotkey. I would have like personally I used I believe 5 and 6 were my like primary. I mean, that was a Zerg, and so yours may vary. But like I would use like a 5 or a 6 to be my like my army, and at the well, don't put your whole army on one hotkey. Don't get used to having like multiple sections of it on multiple hotkeys, please. Because what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna have units that move at different speeds, and you're gonna just like, if you just put all of your army on one button, you're gonna hit that one button and tell them to attack, move across the map, and then you're gonna AFK, you're gonna go do something else. And then one half of your army will get there and one will still be way back. So get used to doing that. You only need like 2 or 3 really like hotkeys for your army, but you should like this should be on a hotkey already. So basically what happens is that you hear the Reaper coming in, right? You hear the ping ping, and immediately you just hit your 5 or 4 or whatever it is, and then just A click. Like I hit the A button. But and then as that's coming over, you click your low health probe and you just right click back. So you just, as your probes are kind of getting damaged, you kind of like get them out. Just to make sure that they don't get any kills onto them. You got really lucky in that basically they like moved that in, and then they kind of just had it sit there. You see, you got like a bunch of probes who were like damaged, right? If this player was better, they could have just like literally right clicked one of these probes and you would have lost 1, maybe 2 probes here. Because quite a few of them are pretty low. You've got, that one's about half. Okay, that one's a little bit healthier than I thought, but still, like you've got enough probes that are like low that if they had just literally right clicked it instead of what they did, then like they kill a probe. here, and then so if you just do a little bit of extra micro, that can help out tremendously. Chasing it all the way to the edge is totally fine. Now, so something you should really do now that you realize that they have harassment units that can get up over the cliff. Take a stalker, put it there. Take another stalker, put it over here. If they jump up in the middle, you still should be able. One of them should be close enough to catch it. You know, can only jump up the cliffs, so a stalker here means it can't get up this way without going into your stalker. And you can literally, you could just put them on hold position. You could put them on stop. It doesn't really matter. Actually, stop is probably better than hold position, just in case there's some range issues. But yeah, you should have a stalker here. You should have a stalker here. I'd probably plan the stalkers at their gateway. They're probably fine. If he's really persistent, maybe a stalker here would be important because he could potentially drive the Reaper like up this way and get into your back line, into your mineral line, which is not good. So yeah, it's just kind of like we want to be. Oh, apparently if I press the function keys, I can select units. That's weird. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, we can place our, instead of just letting our stalkers pile up at the choke here at the ramp, we could just place them around to stop harassment. Okay. All right. Take a look at our cross map position. So something else I would do to facilitate this, right? So you've got this pylon up here, right? This pylon, if I were you, I would have this pylon on a hotkey. Like, I would make this pylon 3. Like, assuming we aren't actually going to, like, let's say we're just not building robocores, we're not building robo facilities, we're not building any of those stuff. We're not building stargates. If we're just on gateway tech, if that's our plan, especially, I'm putting this on 3. If we do plan to get more production facilities, maybe I put it on a 4 or a 6 or a 7 or something, but just put it on a hotkey is the big thing. So you put this on a hotkey so that instead of having to bring your mouse down to here and then click this area to do your warp ins, because I assume this is what this is here for. So instead of having to like click on the mini map to do this, now we have to get our eyes and our hand, because that's the big thing, right? Whenever we move our mouse, our eyes have to be involved too. Like, we can't just blind click. If we blind click, we have no idea where we're clicking. So that means we have to like move our entire eyes down here as we move our mouse here to click. Whereas we could stare straight ahead and be doing things and then press like 6, 6. 6 to select the pylon, 6 to go to the pylon. And now we're just up here doing our pylon stuff, right? Which another thing too, right? Instead of like, just in case this is what you're doing, right? If you're doing like this, you're like just moving your mouse around to like move. This is kind of suboptimal, right? So if you want to like take quick swings around the map, like just literally grab the mini map and start like just moving around like this. Like, this is so much quicker. Like, it's a little bit more difficult, especially to get used to, because you will move so incredibly fast. But like, this should be a lot like easier for you to kind of get around. It's much quicker at the very least, right? As opposed to like tuning, where you're like constantly just like moving the mouse around. Here I'm F2ing instead of just 2ing. All right, so we're taking a look here. We're seeing that our scout is getting in. We're seeing a bunker going down. We know they're on Reapers and they're gonna have bunkers. So this is kind of an interesting thing where they got a little bit of harassment. Clearly, that if I'm seeing a bunker here, that probably tells me that they're playing some sort of like, they're not playing straight up for the harassment. Although now that we look at their production tab, wait, production. Huh. Okay. So you've got warp gate nearly online, which I assume this is why we're waiting, which is why we're not producing anything, because we're waiting to morph into warp gates. And then they only have 1 marine being produced. They're building 3 barracks and a starport behind this. Okay. All right. So, which again, how much intel do we have on them? Right? Nothing. We don't know. We have no idea what they have, right? So if we send this probe earlier, right, we could get in and see what they're doing early, and then we could have a little bit of information about how they're going to be playing, which is pretty important. But that said, we see this. Whoops. Okay, so we go back down here as we realize our research is complete. I'm actually a little bit more curious to see how much we see. Okay, so we get blocked off by the wall in, right? So this is a very common strategy. You build 2 supply depots and a barracks. You can lift the barracks up to let units out, but you plop it back down, nothing can get in. So, however, because they're building all of their production facilities right at this wall, this does nothing, right? So we see that they have a factory. We can't tell if it's got an add-on or not. At least from your perspective, you can't. We can tell it is because we can click on it and see it's building a tech lab. But we don't know. We have no idea. So this facility right here, we see it. We see that it is active. We can see the lights churning inside of it. That means it's an active structure. It's not just sitting there doing nothing. So this could be building tanks. We don't know. This could be building fire or Hellions. We do see, thankfully, that they have a starport. Now, we're on massing stalkers, it looks like, so we're more or less fine. If we're going for blink stalkers, like, we're pretty okay. Like, we don't have to worry too hard about air because we already have anti-air. Like, our army already can shoot up, so we're okay. Now, one thing that does bother me, right, is that now I'm not sure, right? So I keep saying that I assume that this pylon is here because what we want to do is we want to warp in stalkers across the map. Now, maybe that is what you're doing, but if that is the plan, right, then these stalkers probably shouldn't be here anymore. If we're planning on making a timing attack, right, where we time it so that, like, we're gonna warp it up there and we're gonna attack, right? If that's what we're doing, then we can actually, like, start to not worry so much about our base and the harassment that's coming in. You might leave like one of these stalkers behind, but like 2 of these stalkers should have been sent, like, up to meet the force that's about to get warped in. And if those were sent earlier, first of all, right now neither player has map control. Well, actually, you could try to say that both players have map control. But so no one's taken control of the map at all. Like, the entire middle section of this map, as I zoom through it at like 9 million miles an hour, this entire map is completely open. No one's controlling it. No one's doing anything. So you have no positions where, like, you have an advantage. You're not like, you don't know. Like, this is the other thing too that really bothers me, right? Is you've sent like 2 probes, maybe 1 probe? I'm actually not sure. I think 1 or 2 probes. Let's give you the benefit of the doubt and say 2 probes. You've sent 2 probes across the map. You went over here, you put a pylon down, you went over here, you took a look at their front and said, oh, you have a starport. Okay, good. But, like, we don't know if they snuck a 3rd base over here. We don't know if they're over here. We don't know if they have an army sitting right here. Now, granted, like, they're teching up, and we have no reason to believe that they are currently being in a position to be, like, super aggressive. But we have no idea. Like, so the fact that we have no forces anywhere on this map is, like, kind of an issue. Stalkers are pretty mobile. Like, they're not as mobile as, like, Terran, like Bioballs, like Marine Marauder Medevac kind of stuff. Like, we don't, like, outmaneuver them without blink, but, like, one stalker can still, like, do quite a lot of damage to, like, a pile of Marines or whatever, and they're not super slow either. Like, they're pretty maneuverable. Do we have blink? No, and I don't think we have the option to get blink, do we? Yeah, we don't have the right. Okay, so we don't even have blink stalkers. We're not even necessarily going for them. Yeah. Okay. So just another quick note. We're looking at our resources here. We have so many minerals. So, like, what could we be doing with these minerals, right? Well, we could be taking an expansion. I mean, we're about to do a warp in of stalkers, so maybe I shouldn't, like, pressure this too hard. But, like, we still allow our minerals to float up quite a lot. Let's go ahead and let's unpause for a second and let's let those. Oh, it's a prep. Okay. So, okay, we do our warp in, and we have 600 minerals still available. So, like, a Nexus only costs, what is it? If we take a look, it should be like 400. Okay, okay, I can. Okay. Yeah, 400 minerals. 400 minerals. We get expansion. we'd have 200 minerals left over to build probes with, probes and pylons, right? So, like, this is where like our macro really needs to be like super crisp. And like part of this, right, is that like there were times where we could have been producing more army, which is great. Now I'm seeing our stalkers moving out, so this is another issue, right? So this is where like we want to attack with these stalkers and we want to attack with these stalkers, but we could have done this much faster if we had tried to move these out, so that we timed it. Like maybe like you're gonna have to do this like a couple times, okay? So as you're like getting your warp gate technology, or you're doing your transformations, let's say, like figure out like a point. Like, is it like halfway through the metamorphosis from gateway to warp gate? Is that when these stalkers, if I send them across the map, they get to this area by the time these guys are ready to warp in? Is it when I start the gateway to warp gate like transformation? Is that when I send these stalkers? Just keep playing with it until you see how long it takes those stalkers to get across the map to get to your pylon. And then when you do that, you'll find that this attack will be way more effective, right? Because like instead of having like these 4 stalkers here and then these 3 stalkers here, and then having those have to wait for these to get there, you just immediately have 7 stalkers, and you just literally just walk with 7 stalkers into the space. Like if we look at the unit tab, right? Like what do they got? They got a Reaper and 2 Marines. They literally have a Reaper and 2 Marines. We could absolutely easily crush this. Easily crush this. Easy. All right, we take a look at the probe. We realize it's dead. We come back. We do some things. Okay, so we are trying to get an expansion. It looks like we're selecting our stalkers. That's good. We're realizing we do need to group these stalkers up. But again, this could be so much quicker if we just kind of like move things before. Okay, good, excellent stalker micro. Excellent stalker micro. I like that a lot. So, what did we see there? So what we saw was our stalkers went in. They started doing damage. When this stalker, when it started to lose its shields, we moved it to the back of the line. Perfect. Literally perfect. Thank you so much. All right. All right. Looks like we're going to try to get the expansion. We're going to warp in some more army of some description. Might have been a zealot. Okay. Well, so I think we lost one stalker there sort of unnecessarily, but you know what? I'm not gonna flame you for it. We saw that you know how micro works. You did micro a stalker perfectly against the bunker. Maybe you just kind of caught a little off guard there. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. You'll get there. All right, so we build a pylon, going for the expansion. So again, right? So this is something that can happen quicker. Not only could you you could have potentially had this down like earlier, but also, so one of the reasons that we do things like attack and expand behind it, right? So if you attack their base, right, what are you doing? You are putting pressure on them. What you were saying is, I am going to, in this case, I am going to kill your natural expansion unless you stop it, okay? So by doing this, this gives you the entire map. You have all of the map control because they have to respond to your attack or lose half their income. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. Especially with Terran, where they have like, this is an orbital command here. They didn't even put like a planetary fortress. This was orbital command. So we're talking they got mules still exist in this game, right? Yeah, they still have mules. Okay, they still have mules. Oh my gosh, it's so broken. So yeah, so what that attack does is it gets us map control. The problem is, if we build this base now, we don't have that same map control, right? What we did is we dealt a crippling blow to their economy, and now we're hoping they don't have an army ready and poised to come after us. Whereas if we put this down, like if you start this as you're grouping your stalkers up to go in, and this is already building during your attack, not only is it just further along because you have all the time when you were attacking for that to be building, that's also when the map control is being asserted. So that's when this is being protected, is when your army is actually in their base. It's a really weird way to say it, right? Because we think like, oh, it's like if I'm looking to be like protect myself, what I want to do is turtle. I want to put my army in a spot that I want to defend. But that's not how we play. Well, the way we play is we put pressure on our opponent to stop us or lose their whole base. And then behind that gives us all the room in the world to do whatever we want. It literally does not matter what you do behind it, but always try to be doing something during your attacks. In this case, our strategy calls for us to build this expansion, which is great. Expansions are fantastic. Okay. No, I'm gonna let this play out a little bit longer, and I want to see how long it takes us to do another attack. Because we got chased out by like a single Marine. Right? Like, and the Marine made our 7 stalkers like move here, and now we're getting kind of scouted and whatnot. We're coming up, we're making more units. Good. Alright, we come forward, we kill that. We try to kill off their expansion.
I am here in the shadows.
Okay. Don't be fancy. Nothing was attacking you. You don't need to move. Just sit and shoot. Don't dodge things that aren't shooting at you. See, now they have a bunch of Marines and they got tanks on the high ground. Maybe you know what? Maybe there was. Let me back up just a little bit. I want to see, was there a tank fire that I just completely ignored? Was there a reason to fidget the way we did? So the attack's coming up pretty soon. So we come down here. Yep, that base exists. Okay. Make stalkers. Okay. Come here, move up here. So here's another weird take I'm seeing, right? So we're warping these guys in, but then we're sending these 7 stalkers into an area we have not scouted. Like, for all we know, they have like a whole bunch of stuff here, right? So like, these 7 stalkers don't need to be here, or these 7 stalkers don't need to be here yet, right? Like, we can move them more like here, and then just wait for these guys to warp in. They're almost done. All we do is just wait like 2 seconds. They'll be done. Now instead of 7 stalkers, we have 11 stalkers. Those numbers are very significant, right? That's a pretty big increase. But anyway, we kill that. Right? We kill that.
I am here in the shadow.
Yeah. No, they don't even... Okay, this tank is now set up. Okay. But like, yeah, we don't necessarily need to be worrying too much about this. So something else, like if we are worried about them having this high ground position and tanks and stuff, like we can move these stalkers like more up here, right? Like which this is a commitment, right? Like this is committing in, but like this building is nearly dead, right? Like what are they gonna do? So if we just move our stalkers like up here, this should buy us another couple of shots before they can bring army in. We probably trade this base. Even if we trade this expansion for like 2 or 3 stalkers as we're walking slowly out, that's fine. We'll get them back. This is too much of a crippling thing for their economy for us to actually take out. As it is, we kind of back up. We're running through tank fire. We leave some stalkers. We try to get the base. We realize we're not going to win this fight. We back out. We are bringing our other stalkers in, which is good, except we're standing in tank fire again. So yeah. So I mean, and this is unfortunate, right? They've spotted us out. Okay. So we can assume that this pylon is not long for this world, right? And we shouldn't even try to hold it. We shouldn't even try to hold it. Like, just, which, this is another thing too, right? Like, you could put a pylon, like, over here. You could tuck one over here. You know, you could put one mid-map. Like, just having pylons around the map, because you can warp in, like, you can catch, like, enemy movements, right? Like, if they're setting out scouts or whatever, you can catch it. You can catch scouts if you're watching your mini-map closely enough, where you can just, like, click, there's a pylon here, boom, warp in a bunch of stuff, go kill the thing, right? Okay, let's see what happens. Okay. Okay. So why was that not correct? Right? So the Terran, in that instance, we just back up a little bit. All right, let's take a look at what the Terran is looking at. Okay. All right, let's not take a look at what he's looking at because it doesn't really matter. The point is that, like, he can see this area, right? He watches you warp 4 stalkers in, and then it ends. If you wait for that scanner sweep to go away, he won't be able to see that you warped more stuff in. All he sees is a pylon, right? So letting him know that you're building more army on his doorstep tells him a few things. One, you didn't spend any resources back at base. So if he has an army that can, like, if he has a dropship, which he could, not dropship, medevac. He could medevac. So he can get a medevac, take these Marines, come down. He knows you just warped a bunch of stalkers in at my base. If I'm okay with maybe doing a little bit of trading, or I just know that my tank positioning is fine to, like, repel you, he could take a medevac full of Marines and easily just come down and just pressure you. Because he knows that you don't have a bunch of stalkers at home. You warped them in on his front doorstep. So again, information is, like, one of the most key things in the game, and the more that we can kind of, like, hide from our opponent, the better. What are we researching? Wait. Not structures. It's not like a... Oh, upgrades. Here we go. Wait a minute. Okay. So... I'm very curious about this. So, up to this point, you have warped in almost nothing but stalkers, right? And Blink is a pretty key ability for stalkers. Like, if you're going to mass stalkers, which massing stalkers is, like, one of the best, like, easy things to do with protoss, right? Like, it's super easy, but the unit is, like, really good, right? Stalkers are actually, like, pretty incredible. So Blink would allow us to counter these tanks, right? So if we take a look at these tanks, right? Well, they're not okay. They're set up over here, right? So let's say we want to counter these tanks, or we want to just counter this wall, right? All we have to do is get, like, an observer or something like that. We get some kind of unit that can see onto this high ground, and we can blink up the high ground, right? Boom, we avoid their choke. We don't have to take out these buildings first. We can just blink up into here. We can't blink from this direction, but we could potentially, like, run around this base here and blink up this way. If we're worried about harassing, I think this might be a little far for blink, but it's... Yeah, no, that's too far for blinking out. But still, like, it allows stalkers to become a little bit more of a harassment unit because they have a way to get out. It also allows us, as we're walking our stalkers forward, right? So tanks have a minimum range when they're in siege mode, okay? So one of the things we can do, which also, like, let's say this tank sets up where it is, right? Let's just say that these two tanks set up exactly where they are, and this tank goes into siege mode right here. So if we take our stalkers and we go to, like, this area, we go, there's a tank, blink, and we blink onto this tank. If this tank shoots our stalkers that are on top of this tank takes the splash damage, as does all of their units that are nearby. So by blinking onto a tank that's a little bit further away from another tank, not only do we get to kill this tank pretty much for free, because it can't fire back at us, but it will also take its friendly fire, and then we can quickly move on to the other tank. So blink, I think, would be incredibly useful right here, but instead we're researching charge, which does, like, it does help, right? Because it does allow us to close distance on tanks. That's great. But like these are like the first. Yeah, these are like the first zealots we've done, and we still have like 500 like gas. Like, I'm not entirely sure why these are stalkers and not just more. I'm sorry, why these are zealots and not more stalkers. Like, if that's kind of how you're meant to like do your build order, like I don't want to criticize your build order too much. It just looked to me like you were looking to set up for a blink play, and then like this feels like an adaptation that didn't need to happen. So if I'm wrong, that's fine. Like play your build order. Like don't worry too much. But I'm just looking at it from my perspective, and I don't know what your build order was, so I don't know what your strategy called for. But I'm looking at this like these could have just been more stalkers, and then we go for a blink. And so what this also means, right, is that we should not attack. Okay, so basically because they have siege tanks, and because we don't have anything to counter siege tanks yet, like basically either blink or charge is how we're looking to take care of those siege tanks. Until we get that, we can't actually do anything. We cannot push into their positions. We can take positions outside this base. Like this is kind of fine, right? Because if they move a tank into range and siege up, we could just walk back, right? But we have to cede all space to the tanks that they take. Unless we can catch them mid-rotation, in which case, cool. If they're moving, go kill them. If you can, safely. If you can't, back up, give space, but like force them to waste time sieging to get you the time you need to get one of these upgrades. Either Zealot Charge or Blink would do it. So that's what I would suggest. Just like if we're attacking here, this is probably going to be met with disaster. We'll see. Okay. No. Okay, I did it again. I hit space thinking it would pause. No. Bad attack. Right? What do we know they have? Siege tanks. Even if we don't know they have these, bad attack, right? Why? Because we're warping in units. We want to time our attacks for when we're at our strongest, right? So we just spent a bunch of money on stalkers, or no, zealots? Stalkers. We spent a bunch of money on stalkers that are not in the fight. We just spent a bunch of money and then attacked. Okay? No. Get the most out of it you can, right? Wait for these to warp in, then do your attack. Or don't, because honestly I don't think you should attack here at all. I think attacking here is a bad idea because of the siege tanks. Which, okay, we get one of their tanks, which is fine. Something else that I'm noticing, which is like perfectly normal, right? Like this is something that, and I can't tell exactly. Well, I do know what you're selecting, right? You're selecting no. How can I tell what you're selecting? Can I do that? I'm on the player camera. I don't think I can see what you're selecting. Can I? What are you selecting? All right, so I don't know what you're selecting, but here's what I'm gonna assume. I'm gonna assume that since our camera stayed like very solidly here, that we didn't select like anything else during that process, right? So what does our like unit count look like right here? So right now we've got 23 probes. Wow, okay. Yeah, let's take a look at this. Okay, so this base has been here long enough to charge up about 25% of its energy here, right? I guess we can look down here and say it's, yeah, 66 out of 200, right? So that's over a quarter of its energy, right? So what we've done is we've built a base here, but like this nexus is supposed to mine minerals, right? So if I were you, what I would do is I would put this here and this here on one hotkey, on the one key, and I would right click this mineral patch, and I would be as you're doing this army movement here, as you're controlling your army, you don't need to be on here 100% of the time, right? You just tap one, EE, tap your army hotkey. Wait a couple seconds, tap one. Do we see anything here? No, EE, back to army. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? The Terrans, we've killed this expansion like at least once, and then we've like come back in and done a bunch more damage. They have 28 workers, we have 23. Right? So like which this base is like fully stocked, right? Like this is fine. Like you've done this fine. We look down here, we've got 3 on this, we got 3 on this. Good, perfect split. This base is fully functional. What's this base? Like this base isn't doing any. This base is like we are one basing. We are one basing with 2 nexuses. Two nexuses? Nexi? Anyway, yeah. So we want to get in the habit of, as we are doing things, 1 EE, 4, 5, whatever, because I don't see. This is another issue, right? I don't see your army on a hotkey. So I would like to see that. So I would like you to get like just pick any hotkey you want. It can be 3, I don't care. Like pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, I don't care. Put your army on it. You can start off by putting all of your army on it. It won't matter what the mix of units are. Just put your army on a hotkey. You will find success. Okay, chasing the first kill. Well, okay, I guess if we knew we killed the other. Because we knew we killed the other siege tank, but the problem is, I assume that if they built 2 siege tanks, they should have been producing another siege tank, and here it is. Like, this tank is like, you know, most of the way finished, so this is going to be coming out. So we're potentially walking these stalkers, some of which are damaged, into more tank fire, right? Now, at least we don't have like a whole bunch more like stalkers just sitting here, right? Like at least we can say that much. That's good. Okay. Okay, okay. This was good, right? So we came up here, we realized we don't have anything more to shoot. We attacked the orbital command. Great. Then we realized, oh, I remember when we got hit by a tank from this angle. Cool, we started to move up and around to take shots at it. Good. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. All right, now we just heard a mineral field is depleted, and we're just now getting on to like trying to get this base up and running, right? Which, I mean, I will say that like for this stage of the game, well, no. So the reason your resource usage is actually this low is probably because you were mismanaging your expansion, if we're perfectly honest, right? Which is understandable, right? So one of the things that makes StarCraft hard is that you have to do macro management while doing micromanagement. So you're here, you're trying to do the fun part of StarCraft, right? You are trying to kill them with stalkers. That's super fun. But like, as this is happening, you have a base that needs to be run, right? You have this expansion that needs to be filled. So like, that's where like a little bit of extra effort, where we just like, you know, shift 1, literally click this nexus, shift 1, do it while it's being built. You can hotkey buildings during warp in. You don't have to wait for them to finish to put them on a hotkey. So just put it on the hotkey group before anything, as it's warping in. Again, you could set the waypoints, right click this mineral patch as you're doing the fun part of StarCraft 2, press 1 EE. No problem. Okay, we get hit by a tank. Okay. I'm going to assume you understand why this movement was bad. Remember, we want to move away from damage, especially damage we can't actually do anything about, right? So you want to be backing up, right? So something else that we notice is that, like, if we take a look at our supply, right? Like, we were currently like 35 to 41. Now, granted, like, if we look over here again, we see that, I don't know, they're still on 26 SCVs, 28 SCVs, like, yeah, neither side is macroing particularly hard, and I think this is a reason why we're kind of staying a little bit even, is that at least we're putting pressure on the enemy, right? So, but still, like, we should be backing out, we should be making more, like, if we just take a look at your warp gates, like, these are ready, like, these have been ready, these could have been making units. You have money, you have gas, make units. And the more you get on top of that, it's actually gonna feel bad, okay? I'm gonna, like, straight up, it's gonna feel bad. The reason for this is that as you get better at spending your money, you're gonna get supply blocked more often. And you're gonna be like, dang it, why can't I build pylons fast enough? It's because you're producing way more than you were, okay? So, like, get used to it. It's gonna feel bad, you know, but you're gonna make so much more stuff in the end that, like, it's gonna feel so much better. You were to stomp people if you get your... So this is another thing, right? So we keep attacking this outpost, this expansion, when we know that there's a siege tank that hits this area, right? Like this. So if you're not aware, like, this is literally how far a siege tank fires. Like, if we click this siege tank, I guess the issue is that the siege tank only sees to here, okay? So this is how far the siege tank sees, but this is how far it shoots, okay? So, like, this could be one reason why you might not understand, like, how far a siege tank can actually hit. But this is also why, like, if you're coming up here, right, and you're like, oh, I'm not being shot, I'm not being shot, I'm not being shot. Why am I being shot? That's why. Because this field of vision is here. This is here. And so, like, this is where the Venn diagram of I can see and I can shoot is. Okay? So... But, like, again, this is where, like, if our plan, right, which I'm not sure if this was, like, a conscious thing, where, like, our zealot charge is about to finish, right? And if zealot charge is how we're dealing with tanks, we know they have a tank. We don't need to push it, right? We don't need to push it. Granted, you are... Okay, something else. I talked earlier about taking this angle to, like, pick off the base, right? This is excellent, okay? You're doing it, right? Now... I'm curious to see what you do here, because I think there is an argument, because of how low this command center is, 386 HP, that we just fire on the command center and just see if we can kind of trade our stalkers for this command center. I don't know what the math is here for unupgraded stalkers. Damage is 13, so what's the DPS, right? Weapon speed is 1.3. You know what? I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to do math in the middle of the video. I'm just going to say it's probably close, but instead we start fighting Marines. Which... Yeah, so we could probably have fit a couple more shots in. Now they are repairing, so this does change the math. Okay, killing the Marines is fine. Killing the mules here would be fine. Okay, so we just heard like 3 or 4 mineral field depleteds, and we're still staring at our stalkers. Like, we should be doing a Maynard, what's called a Maynard transfer right now. So if we look over here, we see that as we zoom in, workers 16 out of 10, right? We only need 10 workers to keep this fully optimized. We should be just like literally just like bandboxing a random amount of probes and right clicking them over here. Just transfer them, like, really quick. You can still do that in the middle of a fight and still be back in time to micro. Your stalkers might do something stupid, but it's more important to keep your income high than it is to, like, save a couple extra stalkers. Okay, now we're looking at our... I hope we're doing a transfer here. It looks like we're... Yes, we're transferring. Good. Excellent. We could do this earlier, but we are at least doing it. Okay, Forge coming down. Good. So, like, this is another thing we could have been doing with our extra money, right? If we aren't going to sit here and warp in, like, more stalkers or whatever, like, the Forge is really good, because it would get us upgrades earlier, right? Now, if we take a look at them... Now, their Marines are unupgraded. This starport has produced literally nothing, right? They even built a medevac? Hang on a second. Why are you here? It's got a tech lab. They built a starport with a tech lab. I mean, they're supply blocked, and they're actually spending their money pretty well. Well, okay, I say that you've been on their mineral production so hard that they haven't been able to actually build up an extra bank of resources. Wait a minute. They only have 7 Marines. They've got like 85,000. Okay, this is tilting. All right, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. It doesn't matter. Whoops. Okay, doesn't matter. All right, so now that I liked, right? So we're like the fact that we have stalkers out on the map, we have a presence out here, right? Like this is great. Can't believe they're still adding rocks to maps and whatever year this is, 2021. But yeah, the fact that we are sort of like holding this choke from them, like this is great, right? Now, granted, they're Terran, right? Like they could build an orbital command in their main and like expand here, but we don't know that. And part of the reason for that is that we haven't like done any scouting like on the map. And this is something that like I think as you start to climb, you're gonna notice a lot more. A lot, especially Terran players, they're awful for this. They'll sneaky expand on you. They'll just like go somewhere and be like, I hope he doesn't notice. Please, one time. So this is where like just having some extra eyes out here can be like super helpful. Like whether you send like a zealot or a probe or whatever, or you just like literally like just build pylons. Just build pylons like right here. Like build pylons where you would put a base. Because what that'll do is if they like let's say they build a orbital command here, right here, and then they try to fly it down to here, but you've got a pylon right there. Now they have to grab their army, bring it over here, kill off your stupid, you know, pylon that's blocking the way, and then they can land and start taking over the resources here. Or if they do land it, they have to land it like over here, and now they've got like less money coming in because of that. Not to mention your pylon will have seen their orbital command coming, and you'll know that they're trying to do that, which means you can like reposition your army. Again, your protoss, you have a pylon here, you could literally warp in a bunch of stalkers and shoot at it and get them to not actually take the expansion. Okay, make another round of stalkers. That's fine. Honestly, I could criticize the right click move there. Not gonna. I try a move more, attack move. Try to do that a little bit more, but you don't need to worry about it too much. Like, okay, you screwed up, you right clicked, you thought you were safe and you weren't. You moved through a bunch of Marines, they shot at you, it's fine. Doesn't really matter. Okay. So this new pylon I like. I like that we're moving our army around. We're not just sitting still. Moving one stalker up to secure that area while we're doing this over here. Okay. Chrono boosting blink. Good. Oh, we're looking for the harassment. Okay. Now this is something where, right, so if we want to do a blink up, we have to, which I don't think we have a robotics facility, do we? No. Wait. Shield battery. This is still in the game? Okay, weird. I don't know if like the meta has like changed at all, but like I tend to find like I have never seen anyone build a shield battery. Like it's fine, like you spend your resources, like whatever, you got the money to build it, you build it, like it's cool. But yeah, so if we had a robotics facility to build an observer, that's where we can actually abuse the blink up onto the high ground, because then the observer comes in, gives us vision, because we can't blink without vision, right? So the observer comes, gives us vision, we blink up the high grounds, and then the issue though is that we know that this siege tank exists, or at least we should remember that a siege tank was here. It might have been moved, but if we come up this way, you know, observer will come in and tell us like, is it safe to blink here? Which, is it safe to blink here? No, it's not, right? Why? Because this siege tank can shoot to this area. This tank is blocking you off from blinking up this high ground pretty much everywhere. And the unfortunate thing too is that you can't really get onto this siege tank, right? Like this siege tank is pretty much like, it does whatever it wants. So pretty much your options at this point are just out macro your opponent, get a million stalkers, and just, it doesn't matter then. You take losses, it's fine. Which, you know, you've killed this expansion a couple times. Like, you know, you've disrupted his economy a lot. Your economy isn't much better, but let's say it was. Then, you know, you'd have so many stalkers right now that it kind of wouldn't matter if you took an extra couple shots. You lost a couple stalkers as you were getting onto it. So. I don't want to like just say like lol macro better, but I just want to like kind of like point out like all the spots where, not all the spots, but like a good amount of the spots where it's like, you know, which also, right, like this is another thing you'll find, right? Like, can you support this many gateways on 2 base? Maybe, I don't know. But I think what you'll find is as you go up, as you like get better at macroing, you're gonna spend so much of your resources, you're gonna make a bunch of stalkers that you won't be able to support that many gateways. Okay, so this is another thing, right? So blink timing is super important. It's so unfortunate because like if you had like just kind of like just grouped this army together, right? Like you could have even just not, you didn't even have to do that necessarily. Well, no, yeah, I think for where your army was, I literally would just walked it straight back up this way, get together with this army. Look how close this is. You're literally 1 unit of measurement off of blink. If you just wait, if you just get this army together and wait for your blink to come up, all these stalkers are going to be able to blink, right? So all you have to do at that point is then walk your stalkers back into the thing. You see this tank, and the second you see this tank, you just blink directly on top of the tank and you kill it. Okay? That's what we're looking to do. So one thing I really want to stress is that when we're getting upgrades, the timing of the upgrade is one of our go signals for launching an attack. We don't want to attack until our upgrade is finished, usually. If we have an upgrade go, like, I don't want to say that like entirely, like, you know, oh, we're coming up on like +1 ground weapons, like, you know, like in like a minute. Like, okay, maybe if you see an opportunity, you can poke and take an attack. But like, if we're coming up on a huge ability like Blink, which it's game changing. It's literally game changing. A Stalker versus a Blink Stalker isn't even a matchup. Like, they're so much better than regular Stalkers. So if we just wait that extra few seconds for that Blink to finish, this fight goes in your favor. So just always think about that, which now we're grouping out. This is fine. We're grouping out. We're getting things together. We're going in. We have Stalkers on a number. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to think through that engagement. That was very strange. So you go through, you take out the tank, and then it was like both of your armies kind of just realized that the other one existed and sort of just left. I don't know what that was about. Well, that's okay. That's fine. So something else, right, is that like so you have charge, right? Like getting some charge zealots into this mix like could be really good. Like, we're gonna go in again, but okay, so we got some zealots warping in. Good. Okay. So like, yeah, like these zealots are fine. Like this does change. Like right now, like you're building your army composition in a way that says, I want to kind of just brawl you. I'm gonna come at you with a death ball and I'm gonna kill you. Whereas if you were playing only Blink Stalkers, then like what that comes down to is like you're not playing a harassment style, to where you want to be able to like blink up high grounds and like do harassment and stuff like that. So let's see how this goes out. Let's see how this works. I'm not sure about the Terran's decision to back his Marines up, honestly. I guess I kind of understand going for the choke. Okay. I'm not gonna question that blink. I'm not gonna question the blink. So there is something too to be said about like when to take attacks, right? And so like if we see like a group of Marines like that, and we know they have more tanks available, like they're making tanks, cool, whatever. So if we see like a big force of Marines, if we're not like 100% sure that we like win that fight to where like literally like their army is dead, we have like enough people left over to then like kill this expansion, we don't take that fight, right? Like we could walk in and poke, right? We could put pressure on by like walking up and being like, we're here, we're not leaving. And then like, well, we're not leaving, but like we're here, like we have not left, like respect us, we will kill your base, you know. And then they go like, oh well, maybe we come out to meet you because we're like poking at each other. At that point, like you just kind of back your army up, all right? You just back your army up. You force them to kind of like come into you, because what's gonna happen is the farther the Marines come out to you, right? The farther they get from the safe play area, right? So the tank provides them an area of safety roughly here, right? So if their Marines walk outside of that, if they like walk all the way out to like here, right? This is fantastic. You literally blink here. Because if you blink past them, right, they have no retreat now. They can't get back to the safe zone. Okay, you've got them dead. You've got them completely dead to rights. Okay. Whoops. I may have not clicked on the proper tool. But yeah, so like one thing I would suggest is like try to build a larger army before like taking like fully committed attacks. Like if you're coming down here again to like take another like full attack. Okay, we're not. Okay, good. We're dealing with our stuff. We got 2 pylons over here. Okay. Okay. Cross map production facilities. Let's go. I'm here for it. So what does this do, right? What does this do? Okay. So like what this does is it gives us, first of all, we're pretty good over here, so we're being sneaky, right? We know the Terrans might come and kill this pylon, which they can't, right? Why can't they kill this pylon? Because of our stalkers. Because we have map control, because we're putting pressure on them, right? This is one of the reasons why you're doing like well in this game, is because you're forcing this Terran player to sit in his base, right? You're just coming out here being like, nope, you can't come out here. Even though like you honestly would be pretty easy to break, because you're putting pressure on and he feels that, he doesn't know how many stalkers you have out here. Like you could be like macroing like crazy and have millions of them. So he's sitting at his base just macroing up trying to survive, and you're sitting here being like, I'm here. So that's great. That's like the good part of this game. But that's why the reason he can't kill this. But now you're gonna build, in case he kills that, now you're gonna build this robotic facility and this Stargate up here. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this, right? So advantage, we're closer, right? So advantage, if we build units out of here, we build immortals, which immortals are very good against tanks. Observers would allow us to blink on a high ground, so we could take that route. We could build phoenixes to then lift the tanks so that they can't do anything to us. That's another great strategy we could be using right now. But yeah, we build them here so that we can get our stuff to their base quicker. But there is a cost to that, right? This area is only defended because we have map control. If we ever lose map control, we 100% lose this, right? Whereas if we had put it in our base, if we put them here instead, it would take longer, but if we lose map control, we don't lose our production facilities. So I'm not saying this is wrong. In fact, I believe this is actually probably correct. But the reason this is correct, and the reason I want to make sure that you know why this is correct because we have map control, okay? Map control, most important thing in StarCraft. Okay, we're going for another distant third, okay. Okay, here's something else, right? Stalkers are mobile, right? This is a mobile force. We have blink, super mobile, right? So this is why taking a third here, right? Same reason I said before, right? We have a mobile force that has map control. Because of that, we can build this base here. if we were playing a more clumped up style with like Colossus and stuff like that, we probably want to build our third here, maybe here, but probably just here. Just keep ourselves nice and clumped up. But because we're playing Winkstalkers, we can play this aggressively. So, excellent targeting in the medevac. Very good. That was a very high priority target. You grabbed it. And now we're getting out. Oh, okay, we realize we have zealots now? Perfect, perfect. I love this. I absolutely love this. Wait. Why did we leave? Oh, because we're running into the tank fire again. Okay. Alright, that's fine. That's fine, yeah. You don't have to pursue this force. I think it's actually probably correct to go ahead and back up and just re-macro. Like and this, again, this is you taking map control. This is winning you this game. Like 100% if you win this game, it's because you are aggressively taking map control and forcing them to never leave their base. Excellent to see. Now, what's not excellent to see is that we still have 26 probes. We're taking a third base, and our first expansion has 10 out of 16 workers. Okay, like I know you know that your probe management was poor this game. That's fine. But I really want to stress, like, at each individual point where we're coming across it, where it's like, this is really stark, okay? That said, your army management has been decent. Like, as far as, like, you, like, putting your army here and forcing them back, excuse me, has been excellent. I'm very curious to see how you break this tank line, though, because that is currently what's happening right now, is that you are, is this the button for everything? What's the button for everything look? E. Okay. So what you're currently up against, right, is you're up against like tanks and marines. Okay, this is kind of weird, right? Tanks are heavily immobile, right? They are the quintessential immobile unit. They sit still and they shoot loads of damage very far away, right? Like when a tank is set up, it's basically impossible to push them, okay? But they're also playing Marines and Medevacs. So this is very mobile, right? If they have stim, which they don't, but if they had stim, Marines are more mobile than even your Stalkers when you think about it, because they move so fast when they're stimmed and they do so much damage. And then the Medevac heals up the stim damage. So this is something you need to watch out for. They're also cowering in a bunker before you as well, which is pretty hilarious. People are using bunkers. Okay, what are we building? We are building Void Rays, also known as Skill Rays. Yes, the most skilled of all units. Void Ray Micro. I will have one massive tip for you when you build this Void Ray. I have a micro tip for the Void Ray. It's really sweet. Hang on. All right. We're building some more probes, which is good. We are building some probes.
I am here in the shadow.
But what's hurting me to see this, right? We even have 2 Nexuses on a hotkey, and yet like we still like went to the Nexus, clicked it, said E, went to another Nexus, clicked it, went E, went to another Nexus, clicked it, went E. So this is like a bit of an oofers, right? Like we could do more with hotkeys. Something else I just realized, there is like a setting issue that I would very much advise you to do. Let me take a look. Gameplay, is it in here? Mouse and keyboard. All right, do you see this down here? Enable smart camera pan. Make sure this is off. So what this does is it makes it so that when you click on the minimap, see how I click it and it goes there instantaneously. Let's see what happens when smart camera pan is turned on, right? It's gonna hurt me to see this, but so I click over here. Wait. Wait a minute. Was that the wrong... This is instantaneous. This is what it should be doing. Alright, I don't know what they did, because, what that used to do is it would then, like, zoom in between the places that you went? When enabled, the camera will quickly scroll instead of jump to a nearby unit when you click the unit's portrait. Oh, maybe that doesn't... Okay, hang on. So maybe if I go, like... Wait, no, because I need to do... Alright, well, it's not coming up... You can't tell what it is, but basically, if you were to, like, tap your hotkeys in-game, instead of, like, going, BAM! What it would do is it would go... It would just, like, pan over instead of just, like, teleporting. So... if you have this enabled, what that means is that you will be having slower response times in where your camera's positioned. Now, if that helps you keep control of like where things are in the map, that's fine. You can keep it on. But I would suggest turning it off and see if you don't like it a little bit more. Okay. All right. We have a skill ray. We have a skill ray. Here we go. Okay. We're coming up on my big tech tip for how to micro your skill ray here. This is pretty big. It's pretty big. Okay, so we got our... Alright, we're putting more stuff in. Do we wait for them to finish? No. Okay. Oh, we're coming back here to make more stuff. Okay. Let's take a look at the production tab. Building a lot of different stuff. Good. Okay. All right, here's my micro tip, right? So, with your skill raise, right? With your skill raise, you right click like a tank, and then you drink coffee. But yeah, so the void rays, void rays are good against tanks. Why, right? So void rays do a lot of damage, especially like when they build up time to shoot on stuff. They're also very good at killing buildings, destructible rocks, whatever, as they get higher and higher charge. But of course, tanks can't shoot up, right? So what are the downsides to using void rays to kill tanks? Marines shoot up. So we need to realize that our win condition, right? So we cannot win a fight unless we had just like way too much stuff. We have way too much stuff. We just win out. We win with attrition and numbers. But on an equal supply footing, we never beat with a gateway army. We never beat tanks. Not never. I shouldn't say never. But like theoretically, we don't beat tanks, right? So how are we killing the tanks? We're killing the tanks with void rays, especially this tank. This tank is really hard to get to die, right? Which we should have our void rays killing this tank right here. But let's say we were doing that, right? So what would be the threat? Well, these Marines, right? So this is where our gateway army now has to fight only Marines as our void rays take out the tank. So this means that our gateway army runs cover for our void rays, who are running cover for our gateway army. And that's how we kind of like make sure that we win the fight, is we get the right units fighting the right things. Right now we're just sort of attack moving. So like again, like this probably could have been lethal if you just void raid on that and then make sure the gateway army is fighting the barracks army, and then you probably went from there. That said, we're coming back, we're getting more stalkers. This is fine. We're getting more void rays. At this point, we don't even care that they scan this, because like whatever. Avoiding that is good. Avoiding that is really good. So now you have one more void ray they don't know about. Okay. All right. Going back in. This has to be lethal because we're seeing that we're really close to the end of the timer. But okay, yeah. Again, this is where we would really prefer our void rays hitting this siege tank right here. Like that would absolutely like clean up things a little bit better. Okay, we're eventually doing it. And then we blink in onto this tank. Excellent. Perfect. Yeah, this is a base race without the GG out. We're good. So yeah, I would say, like, after watching that, I would say A, probes and pylons, probes and pylons, probes and pylons, probes and pylons. Build it into everything you do. If you select your stalkers, you hit your 4 or whatever your button is going to be. You select your stalkers, you tell them to move, you press your Nexus hotkey. Maybe you tap some E's, maybe you don't. Try not to queue things up. Queuing things up is a waste of resources that you could be putting somewhere else. But yeah, basically I would say that, like, a big thing we need to do is, I would say your overall, like, some of the attacks are suspect, and that's fine, especially when we're just learning, right? But, like, I think a big thing to remember as, like, why we won this game, why did this Terran feel like they could do literally nothing despite, like, all of this production, right? It was because we kept up the pressure, right? Keep doing that. Keep doing that. This will win you games. This gives you map control. You can do anything you want as long as you keep up the pressure. Just know that when the second you lose this pressure, you lose map control. So, like, it's you're dancing. You're always going to be dancing on a knife edge, but that's good. That's good. Aside from that, like, probes and pylons, always be going back to 1, always be tapping E. Try to build a pylon on a regular basis. Just sneak one in there occasionally. Put them around the map to get you vision, as well as extra supply. What else? The timing for our pushes. If we're poking, we can poke whenever. You know, this is something else. Okay, this is what we're gonna focus on. Okay, 2 things. I want you to do 3 things. I'll give you 3. I believe you can handle 3. 1, keep up the pressure. Keep doing that. That will win you games. 2, I want you to have a constant thing while you're pressuring. Press 1 for your nexuses. Tap E. When you build an expansion, right-click those minerals with both of your nexuses, and keep going to talent. Keep making sure we're building. Just build probes, build probes, build probes, build probes. Constantly be building probes. Constantly be building pylons. Like, way more than you want to. Like, you're gonna be so annoyed at how many of this garbage you're making. You're gonna find yourself with so much money. After being starved in the early game, you're gonna find yourself with tons of money in the late game. 3. Okay, 3 is another big thing. So 3 is, I want you to think about the difference between, am I poking or am I pushing? Okay, if we're poking, it doesn't matter what the timing is. We can move in, see if there's something we can get, and if we can pick it off and get out, go for it. If we move in and poke and we're being repelled, let yourself be repelled. Don't worry about it. Walk backward. If we're gonna push, look to see what's about to come online. Are we about to get another cycle of stalkers? Wait for that. Are we about to get a big upgrade like blink or +1 ground attack, or even ground armor or shields if people still get that? You know, try to make your pushes as strong as possible, and the strong as possible is usually right after something happens that's, like, big, like a round of stalker production or a big tech upgrade. And then yeah, that's it. Those are the 3 things I want to really kind of harp on and get on you about, and I want you to kind of, like, go into your next few games and try to really work on those things. But yeah, no, good job, excellent job, keeping the pressure up. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy the game and keep oops, apparently I'm moving the mouse around and looking all over the place. So yeah, those are my tips for the day. Hopefully you find it very, very helpful. I wish you luck in your ladder games.